The next day, Shin Yuan and his team are fully prepared. Marco stood there, watching Shin Yuan and Smoker step on the moonwalk and gradually disappear into the sky. Is there really an empty island? Marco suddenly felt dazed. Boss, it's time for us to carry out our mission. A word from the younger brother behind him brought Marco back from fantasy to reality. New. As he spoke, he put his hand into his trouser pocket and fumbled out a phone bug that looked like a white beard. Anyway, I still have to report it first. With this in mind, Marco directly called Whitebeard. On the other end of the phone, Whitebeard's lazy voice came. What's wrong? Marco? Dad, I met Shin Yuan this time. Oh? How about it? Whitebeard also aroused great interest. We had a great time drinking this time, and our relationship became much closer. Shin Yuan also seems to be a person who values the crew, and I think we can make friends with him. Whitebeard nodded, seeming very satisfied. Goo-la-la-la. Not bad. But is that all there is to it? Marco continued. Shin Yuan proposed a cooperation. He has some information about devil fruits. I want to carry out a large-scale cleanup of the pirates in the Grand Line, and the treasures obtained will be divided 50-50 with us. Whitebeard was stunned, thinking about the pros and cons of Shin Yuan's plan. It is true that if the intelligence of this cooperation is correct, and they get a 50-50 share of the devil fruit, it will enhance the strength of the Suns. However, Marine and the world government will not sit idly by such a move. Marco, world government. Dad, Shin Yuan once said that he killed several CP members, but so far there has been no movement from Mary Joa. In this case, Whitebeard pondered for a moment and agreed after a moment. Tell that kid that I've accepted this order. We only need 30% of the treasure, but you have to agree to one condition. Marco said excitedly, Dad, tell me, I'm listening. I will tell him this in person after we meet. Marco nodded and wrote down these words. Then it sprouted green flame wings and chased Shin Yuan and the others flying high into the sky. But at this moment, a group of minions raised their heads steadily, watching Marco fly high into the sky and disappear. I was stunned for a moment. The bird flew. Why are we going? We can't fly. Go drink. Boo-hoo. Shin Yuan and Rayleigh walked side by side on the moonwalk and slowly ascended, followed closely by a group of people behind them. A moment. Arrive at Sky Island. Get skill points *5. Shin Yuan's eyes lit up. After a reasonable allocation of skill points, the agility attribute finally reached its peak. Body of 100 battles. 100 out of 100, dodge combos are smoother, make different tactical responses to different opponents instantly, and at the same time greatly improve the flexibility of the body, making the body lighter. Seeing that his attributes had been improved, Shin Yuan grinned in an exaggerated way. However, he didn't notice at all that several divine soldiers were striding towards him from a distance, very alert. Qinghai people, you need a ticket to enter the Sky Island. Without waiting for the divine soldier to finish speaking, Shin Yuan suddenly releases conquerors. He quickly knocked everyone unconscious and walked into the empty island so easily. Period. Shin Yuan kept looking around, seeming to be looking for the location of the Sky Island Lord. There must be other good things there from the Lord of Sky Island. Whoosh! Shin Yuan rose into the sky and overlooked the entire Sky Island. This glance. The big python sitting on the edge is lying on the ground and taking a nap. Shin Yuan's eyes lit up and he dived quickly towards the big python. Because the speed suddenly accelerated, the air around him was pulled out by bursts of sonic booms, leaving a white trail in the air. Everyone was stunned. What's going on here? Rayleigh smiled and said, I'm going to get the devil fruit. Smoker, then what are we going to do? This time Rayleigh didn't answer. He simply sat on the ground and drank. Shin Yuan on the other side has arrived at the location now. Boom. The moment he landed, the clouds under Shin Yuan's feet were dented. Is this really the future? Shin Yuan closed his eyes, and scenes of the future came into his mind. Then he suddenly opened his eyes and quickly stepped forward and punched out. Bang! This punch knocked the python's head away. What? Enel, who was hiding in the grass in the distance, looked at this scene in surprise. Am I similar to this person? Enel looked at Shen Yuan and then at himself. They also have no wings, the same features, and you can see some similarities between their eyebrows. Boom! There was another fierce attack, and large swaths of clouds and mist were affected and scattered in all directions. The fog disperses. The Lord of Kongdao was already dying and had no intention of resisting, so he just lay down in front of Shen Yuan. Enel used his hands to resist the intrusion of the fog, and when he opened his eyes and saw this scene again, he was extremely surprised. Shen Yuan pressed his palm on the forehead of the Sky Island Lord and smiled evilly. Should I take the treasure myself, or should I kill you and take the treasure? Lord of Sky Island. He seemed to understand what Shen Yuan meant. Struggling, he opened his big mouth and spit out 2 devil fruits, then rolled all the way to Shen Yuan. Looking at one of the blue devil fruits with patterns at his feet, Shen Yuan smiled slightly. Come out, I see you. Enel trembled. Have you really been discovered? Staggering out of the grass, the thin and small Enel was extremely scared at the moment, but also extremely enthusiastic. Kid, where are your parents? Enel's eyes instantly turned dark, as if he had something to hide. Then are you willing to become my teacher? Enel's eyes were full of surprise, and he nodded crazily like a chicken pecking at rice. Okay, are you hungry? You can eat this first. Shen Yuan reached into his backpack, took out some dried meat, and handed it to Enel. He took it with a grateful face and was very happy. Master, are we going to Qinghai? Certainly. Just as he said this, Shen Yuan took 2 steps forward and picked up Enel. Let's go. Shen Yuan carried Enel on his back and picked up 2 devil fruits. He stepped on the moonwalk and disappeared in front of the Sky Island Lord. The Lord of Sky Island breathed a sigh of relief. Just 2 punches. The first punch was just right. It didn't hurt your brain. The second punch was a bit hard, hurting the muscles and bones. The big python spit out a mouthful of old blood. There is another sad snake in this world. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Shen Yuan stepped on the moonwalk and walked in the air, seeming to be still looking for something. High in the sky, the golden clock was standing there quietly. At this sight, Shen Yuan's eyes straightened. God does not let anyone down. Shen Yuan quickly walked towards the golden bell. Enel's initial fear was gone at this moment. As he stared at the novel scene in front of him, he couldn't help but shout, Incredible! Incredible! Shen Yuan flew up and rang the golden bell. The ringing of the golden bell resounded throughout the Sky Island, allowing both the Sky Island natives and Sandians to hear it clearly. Boom! 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 The loud ringing of bells surrounded the entire Sky Island. At this moment, all the villagers, magic soldiers, and Sandians on the Sky Island all looked up to the sky. Boom! 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 The golden bell was shattered by Shen Yuan's punch. Huge force instantly poured on it, breaking into dozens of pieces and falling down one after another. Rayleigh! Rayleigh! Rayleigh heard Shen Yuan's call and quickly stood up and looked at the sky. Help me pick up the pieces. Rayleigh! It understands and uses its domineering power to instantly capture the movements of the surrounding fragments. He turned around and rushed out, hurriedly picking up the fragments of the golden clock. Smoker stood on the ground and kept pointing. Oh, there's another piece here. And there. After picking it up for a while, Rayleigh couldn't help but blush. After all, so many people are watching. Stop watching the show. Get me $2. Crack. Shen Yuan held Enel and landed firmly in front of everyone. The 2 devil fruits shone brightly and were played with by Shen Yuan. What kind of devil fruit is the other one? Shen Yuan murmured to himself and couldn't help but open the fruit illustrated book and start reading it. A group of people were still busy picking up the pieces. After a while, a large bag of golden bell fragments was carried to Shen Yuan. Everyone was very tired. Dusky and Xiong are going to guide the people on the Sky Island, and the others can do whatever they want. Xiong and Dasky looked at each other, nodded, and drove side by side toward the center of the island. After saying that, Shen Yuan glanced at Smoker, then glanced at the direction of the Sky Lord. An idea came to my mind. Use this money to build a boat. That boat must be very cool, right? Smoker is coming with me again. Come to Rayleigh and keep an eye on this kid. Don't let him get hurt. Whoosh! The two disappeared again, running towards the Lord of Sky Island. Khalifa looked intently at the scarred Enel in front of her, and couldn't help but feel motherly love overflowing for a moment. He took Enel's little hand and treated his wound thoughtfully. This time, Cheong and Dasky encountered a problem. Many Sandians and divine soldiers met, and war was about to break out. Didn't you hear the ringing of the golden bell? The gods have spoken. They are condemning your atrocities. A group of Sandians are gearing up, this time preparing to defeat their opponents and take back their land. Are you condemning your atrocities? We have been fighting for hundreds of years, and how many people have been killed or injured? Each of the magic soldiers was also full of murderous intent, looking at Sandia with very fierce eyes. Then let's have a showdown. Just as everyone was getting ready to take action, a loud shout came from afar. I come to represent the captain's will. From then on, the Sandians moved to Sky Island. The Aborigines of Sky Island are not allowed to exclude Shandia. Shandia is the Aboriginal people of Sky Island. When the Sandians heard this, they couldn't help but wonder, is it a god coming to this world? Shandia turned their heads to look around and saw a young-looking person with conspicuous blue eyes staring at them. People from Qinghai? Master Shunming is from Qinghai? I come on behalf of the captain's will. Let your god come out and fight me. As soon as he finished speaking, Gonfer rode Pierre and slowly flew out of the crowd, holding a cone-headed spear in his hand. Did you come here because you want to compete for the position of god? No. The captain is not interested in your position as god. I came here this time to solve the dilemma faced by Shandia. This time we made an agreement. If I can win, the Sandians will move back to Kongdao. If you can win, we will return to Qinghai. Gonfu sighed softly, raised the weapon in his hand, and instantly assumed a fighting stance. Call out. A slash instantly came out from Cheong's leg, running towards Ganfuer. What? Ganfuer hurriedly turned around and adjusted his posture to dodge the attack. He was already a little unsteady on the spear in his hand, but his rich combat experience allowed him to quickly adjust his body shape and be ready to counterattack at any time. Mr. God, pay attention. Cheong raised her leg high and aimed at Gonfu's old face with a kick. Bang! Gonfer was kicked by Joan and fell instantly from Pierre, with a clear shoe print clearly visible on his face. You are too weak. Cheong did not pursue the victory. At least the god in front of him made him not disgusted. I admit that your strength is very strong, but I also want to risk my life to fight. Gonfer once again put his spear across his chest and sat on Pierre again, his eyes resolute and cold. No need. Tashi pulled out Shigyur and was instantly wrapped in thick, black, armed-colored, domineering energy. Call out. He suddenly swung his sword and cut the forest in the distance in half. Gonfuer was dumbfounded, and the spear in his hand fell to the ground with a clang. I lost. Very straightforward and without any delay. If he had to risk his life, he would lose completely. This cliff slash can cut you in half. Okay, we won't stay here any longer. We will leave after our captain has finished processing it. Yes, Lord God. I hope you can agree to my proposal. Gonfu nodded and waved, and a magic soldier staggered over. Inform all the Sky Island divine soldiers to put down their weapons and allow the Sandians to enter the Sky Island. All the divine soldiers were stunned and showed questioning eyes, but Gonfu still looked determined, unquestionable. Everyone, put down your weapons. Everyone, put down your weapons. As soon as these words came out, the whole place was silent. Within a moment, all the Sandians poured into the Sky Island. At this moment, their faces were filled with happy smiles. At this moment, both sides seemed to have put aside hundreds of years of hatred and stood together in hope. Bang! A gunshot broke the beauty. A Sandian man misfired and killed the magic soldier in front of him. Both sides were stunned for 2 seconds. The shooter was also sweating profusely. Every part of his body seemed to be targeted. I said the gun went off. Do you believe it? They took action. They took action. The magic soldiers were immediately furious. and the platoon shells in their hands were ready to move. Bang! The first magic soldier took the lead and knocked away the Sandians in front of him, and then the two sides immediately fell into a battle that has shocked the world for hundreds of years. The scale of this battle is no less than that of the war on the top a few years later. The shooter did misfire. Stop shooting. Stop shooting. Aisha, a little girl from Sandia, used the heart network to sense the surrounding situation and persuaded her very firmly. At this moment, Cheong and Dasky looked at each other. They all saw an emotion called embarrassment in each other's eyes. Is this consolation? That's right. It's not too bad. At least we defeated God. Gonfu's face turned dark. Could you please stop talking about this matter? That's all. If they don't experience the last war, these people won't understand the beauty of peace. After finishing speaking, the two disappeared, no longer paying attention to the chaotic battlefield here. Everything that needs to be done is done. It's the Sandians themselves who are responsible for this. Come to me for a duel, defeat me, and then humiliate me, making demands after humiliation. Now that the two sides are fighting, you guys are just going to ignore it. The two sides are fighting fiercely at this time. Even if the gods are here today, it is impossible to stop this war. On the other side, the two of them had returned to Shenyuan. Let's go. Shenyuan has brought Smoker back to everyone. Smoker was dragging a big bag. At first glance, the bag was filled with gold and glittering gold. Is everything done? Dasky looked strange and couldn't help but look at Cheong. Captain, there's a fight. Dasky said embarrassedly. Who? Who started the fight? Shenyuan looked confused and looked at Cheong with something wrong in his eyes. Is your brain burned out? Didn't I ask you to appease the islanders? Why did the fight start? Cheong's eyes rolled for a while, and finally she told the truth. Simple, it's a matter of conquerors. Rayleigh, you go and we'll go down first. Rayleigh's smiling face suddenly froze. You think conquerors is just street cabbage. Use it if you want to, and don't use it if you don't want to. Shenyuan didn't talk nonsense and just led everyone. Is this how it goes? That's it. Rayleigh's face darkened, and he turned his gaze to the chaotic battlefield in the distance. This is the second time I've wiped this brat's ass. Rayleigh walked into the island angrily and began to deal with the aftermath. The harvest this time is not small. Logia thunderfruit. Shenyuan suppressed the excitement in his heart and continued to murmur. This other one is an ancient species of animal, in the form of a saber-toothed tiger. Rayleigh just listened quietly, with a blank look on his face. Marco said, Whitebeard has agreed to my plan. This matter must be moved up the schedule. You want to cooperate with that old man with Whitebeard? Rayleigh asked in surprise. Yes, I have a mature plan. For what? For the territory and treasure, for the famous sword and strength. After finishing speaking, Shenyuan slowly touched the hilt of the sky, swallowing sword with a look of longing on his face. Smoker keeps counting the fragments of the golden clock. Speechless is written on his face. At the same time, he was also very curious. How did Shenyuan know about these relatively secret things? Know the real existence of Sky Island, know the devil fruit in Sky Island, know the existence of the Golden Bell? Then again, the magical objects on the empty island have just become operational funds? Kid, you really want to kill someone after you catch them. Rayleigh seems to have aged 10 years. After following Shenyuan out to sea for such a long time, I never stopped. Smoker felt the same, but he didn't dare to say it. In a word, I am afraid of being beaten. Old man, keep on going. We may have to meet that old man with white beard this time. Rayleigh nodded. The Sabaody Islands are not far away. This journey is about to end. Speaking of which, Rayleigh's trip during this period was quite enjoyable. It has been such a long time since the pirate group was disbanded, and for the first time, he felt like he was traveling a few years ago. Rayleigh thought. He glanced at Shenyuan. At this moment, Shenyuan is holding Dasky in his left hand and Khalifa in his right hand. That expression of wanting to be beaten seems to be saying, "Oh, it's so boring." Rayleigh. Joan hurriedly ran out of the cabin and said solemnly, "Captain, there is not much food on the ship, There is only a pile of Baileys. Shen Yuan nodded and said casually, "Replenish supplies when we arrive at Changlian Island." As soon as he finished speaking, Shen Yuan suddenly felt strange. "Looks like we're being targeted." "CP member?" Smoker asked tentatively. "It may be that some people on the island exude an aura that is different from the civilians." Shen Yuan stood still, just quietly sensing everything around him. He has slowly used his ability to sense the enemy's aura. As we all know, the key to victory or defeat in the One Piece world is nothing more than 2 points. One is fruit ability, and the other is physical strength. These two kinds of power are completely different. People who have received strict training are very different from civilians. Shen Yuan calls this a power aura. Now Shen Yuan instantly felt that he was being watched. It's like Naruto is being watched by Umbu. He always feels at a loss. The wind roared all around. The spies hiding on Gaia Island are all dressed up like civilians. "Captain, Marco left a phone number before he left, asking us to contact him at any time." With that said, Cheong took out a phone bug with a pineapple head and handed it to Shen Yuan's hand. At this moment, Enel stared blankly at the atmosphere on the ship, especially Shen Yuan. He has no airs of being a strong man. This gave him a different feeling for the first time. Since you want to go to sea, you must set a goal. And he, Enel, will become the strongest man in this world. Marine Headquarters. Malin Vando. Garp, this is news from the world government. What do you think? The Sengoku information was handed to Garp, and then he closed his eyes, seeming to be thinking about something. Garp took it indifferently, looked through it carefully, and was amazed. Adventurer Shen Yuan killed all members of CP9 and fled in fear of crime. Garp was stunned for a long time after seeing this news. Warring State said gloomily, "How do you think the world government will react after this incident happens?" Possible. Garp doesn't know what to say. If you want to kill Shen Yuan on the spot, what should you do? Should we become enemies of the world government, or should we silently swallow this sigh of relief? Maybe we can kill that brat Shen Yuan on the spot, right? Of course this conjecture is correct, but after such a long time, the world government has no response. This proves that the current world government does not want to break up with Shen Yuan. Garp nodded. Whether it was a big deal or a small matter, there was nothing wrong with him anyway. From the perspective of world government, what Shen Yuan did is tantamount to provoking authority. But the world government's order is to send generals to encircle and suppress Shen Yuan. If Shen Yuan cannot be killed, Shen Yuan must be escorted to underwater prison. What? Garp was furious in an instant, and the sunbei in his hand was crushed to pieces. Warring States frowned and continued to speak the second half of the sentence. "It's just that this matter still needs to be discussed. We will not take action until the world government's order is enforced." Garp, who was extremely angry just now, was instantly deflated and sat on his seat and continued to eat the crumbs of sunbei in his hand. "It seems that you are very interested in this, grandson." Garp lowered his head while chewing sunbei and cleverly avoided the topic. "Sengoku, I want to take a month's leave." In the past, Sengoku had to have a big fight with Garp before letting him go, but now he easily compromised. "Okay, I'll give you a long vacation to relax and unwind." Garp opened his mouth in an exaggerated arc, and the crumbs in his hand fell to the ground. Warring States, how did you? In fact, the Warring States period was very sympathetic to Garp's plight. His son organized a revolutionary army and was defined as a dangerous element by the world government. Place all your hopes on your grandson. But his grandson went to sea to become an adventurer, and now he is being targeted by those old men from the world government. While there is still time, my 2 grandsons should establish their values as soon as possible. Sengoku sighed softly, patted Garp on the shoulder, and showed a sympathetic expression. "Garp?" Zifa knocked on the door and pushed in after getting the answer. "Zifa, what do you want from me?" Warring States asked doubtfully. "Warring States, I don't want to teach anymore. I think I'm a loser. I want to get rid of my armor and return to the fields and go home to retire." When it comes to this issue, the Warring States period is all over the place. Marine is in urgent need of manpower now. Just finish this class and then you can retire. Zifa sighed, shook his head and left the office door. one session after another. When will this day end? Warring States seems to be pondering this issue as well. Now Marine Headquarters really needs Zifa. Zifa's teaching ability is better than these old guys. With that said, Warring States took out a phone book. According to the image, it was Smoker's phone book. Bru buru buru, blue buru bulu. Smoker's pocket, which was at the helm, vibrated, and he couldn't help but take it out in confusion. Warring States Fleet Admiral? Smoker was stunned for a moment, thinking in his heart, "Hello, Smoker?" Smoker nodded subconsciously and replied, "Warring States Fleet Admiral? What's wrong?" "Smoker, how are you doing lately?" Sengoku was as polite as ever, making Smoker instantly feel familiar. "Sengoku Fleet Admiral, what can I do for you?" Warring States also nodded subconsciously and said, "What is your status now?" Smoker was stunned. He looked at Shen Yuan lying on the recliner in the distance, and then at the phone bug in front of him, and he fell into a war between heaven and man in his heart. "You don't have to give me an answer to this question right away. I'll give you 3 days. If you don't answer, you will be removed from Marine." The phone hung up and Smoker looked struggling. "If you give me 3 days, am I a Marine or a pirate? Or an adventurer?" Smoker closed his eyes, as if he wanted to forget this problem for the time being. Pirate. It's a pirate. The residents of Long Chain Island were like frightened birds, fleeing in all directions. "Coffee, coffee, coffee. This is my uncle's territory. This is the starting point for me to dominate the world. Coffee, coffee, coffee." Segmented head, rosacea, ugly face. Fox, who was wearing an orchid finger, led the crew to the island and commanded his men to start plundering. Long Chain Island, surrounded by more than 10 islands, is named Long Chain Island because it looks like a long chain. Most of the residents on the island are nomadic people, and their architectural style is somewhat similar to yurts. Run. Many villagers were riding on a long dog, and they were running wildly into the distance. "Coffee, coffee, coffee. Dock the ship at the coast. We are preparing to hold a banquet." "Good." Many minions behind him cheered, but ignored the other people who landed on the island. Shen Yuan was overjoyed when the reward arrived. Arrive at Long Chain Island. Obtain skill points *5. Enel and Joan looked at their surroundings curiously and couldn't help but marvel. What a beautiful scenery. Enel went to sea for the first time and was extremely excited. Indeed, but it seems that pirates just invaded. Shen Yuan had noticed it a long time ago, but his first goal was to search for traces of the burning fruit, and he ignored Fox's group who also came to the island. "Hey, kid, you." Before Fox could finish speaking, an invisible coercion burst out instantly. This momentum made Fox freeze up. He instantly held back what he wanted to say. "Marine, please put down your weapons." Several Marines pointed their guns at Shen Yuan and everyone. Shen Yuan's face turned dark. "I said, can't you tell who is more vicious?" Marine glanced at Fox, then immediately looked away. "Pirates don't move." Buzz. The violent conquerors erupted again, stunning everyone around and the villagers. The Haibing, who was still arrogant just now, was grabbed by the neck by Shen Yuan. His eyes were timid and frightened. "Who are the cadres stationed on this island?" The sailors were so frightened that their whole bodies couldn't stop shaking. "Marine Headquarters Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel," said the Marine tremblingly. "Where?" Shen Yuan asked again. Just. Go away." Shen Yuan threw the sea soldier up and kicked the sea soldier aside. "Fox, let's play a game. If I lose, I'll give you a ton of gold. If you lose, give me the slowness fruit." Fox looked happy. "A ton of gold. That's a ton of gold. But when I came back to my senses, this kid wanted my life." No, you change it. You change it." "Well, if I win, give me your life." Fox's face darkened. "This is crazy. No matter what happens today, you just want my life?" But then I thought about it. It's not a bad deal. "Okay, how to play?" "As long as you can survive my 3 punches, you win. If not, I win." Fox fell silent upon hearing this. The visitor is not good. It's really a bad thing. "Kid, Don't be too arrogant, Before he finished speaking, a fist suddenly hit Fox in the face like a missile that was coming quickly. The fierce wind blew all his heads into big backs. Bang! A wave of air instantly erupted and filled the surrounding area. Bang! Another punch continued. Explosive. My day. Smoker subconsciously touched his waist and felt it tremble slightly. Boom! Fox was embedded in the ground, his chest heaving and vomiting blood. Let's not throw this third punch for the time being. Let's leave the victory or defeat to our own crew. Shen Yuan smiled slightly and stepped heavily on Fox's chest with his big foot. Feeling the weight of this kick, Fox spit out a mouthful of old blood again. Damn it! If you don't move your hands, move your feet. Two big men stepped forward nervously and looked at Shen Yuan warily. These two idiots, Smoker. You are here to deal with them. Smoker took a step and shook the ground. Bring it on. The big man suddenly felt Alexander. Looking at the silver-haired Smoker in front of him, his teeth trembled. Ding! Dang! One person fell to the ground immediately with one punch, making a dead gesture. Shen Yuan was speechless. We admit defeat. We admit defeat. Our ship and its treasure are yours. Sir, can you please not kill our captain? A sweet female voice came slowly. Shen Yuan turned around and looked. I saw a pretty decent-looking woman looking at me with a pleading look on her face. It's so cute, you can't do that. Shen Yuan smiled and spoke, using a little force with his big foot. He stepped on Fox until he screamed. Don't kill me, don't kill me. I can be your ox or your horse, I can be your... How can you still scream? You are nothing more than a cow and a horse. Shen Yuan raised his feet high and hung in front of Fox. Then it was suddenly covered with armed domineering energy, entwined with black and white lightning, and it aimed heavily at Fox and stepped down. At this critical moment, one of the big guys launched an attack to prevent the disaster from happening. Boom! The big man's arm was broken by Shen Yuan's kick, and his power was not reduced, and it landed heavily on Fox's belly. Wow! There was a sound of flesh and blood being ravaged. Fox's belly was trampled into a pile of mud. He can make dumplings during the holidays. Kill the plot character Fox and get skill point *1. Another waste with insufficient strength? Was he killed too early? Is it possible that before killing someone next time, you have to ask if the other person is worthy? You have to think carefully before being killed. Do you deserve it? The girl turned pale when she saw this scene. He closed his eyes, kicked his legs, and fainted instantly. Shen Yuan ignored his life and death, but turned to look at another big man watching the show. You take this group of cannon fodder to search the stronghold where Marine is stationed, and report it to me after you get the news. Do you understand? The big man nodded quickly and ordered his subordinates to start working. So, how do you plan to die? His arm was broken, and the sandbag who sacrificed his life for the savior was sweating coldly. I don't want to. Shen Yuan volleyed and landed heavily on his neck. The power comes instantly. Just a click sound was heard, and the sound of a broken neck spread crisply to the surroundings. He fell to the ground suddenly and never finished his sentence until he died. Wake him up, Shen Yuan said calmly. Cheong nodded, stepped forward and patted the girl's face, and then the girl woke up in a daze. As a result, the first time I saw Shen Yuan, I felt like I was seeing a devil. Don't kill me, don't kill me. The girl was panicking, and the fairy wand in her hand kept shaking. You can live and get out of here before I change my mind. After saying this, Shen Yuan began to study the 2 devil fruits he had obtained previously. Thank you for your kindness of not killing. I will definitely repay you in the future. As if she had received an amnesty, the girl quickly turned around and ran towards the pirate ship. But halfway through, I was stunned. This doesn't seem to be our ship anymore. The girl ran again and disappeared along the path before everyone's eyes. Boss, do you want? Khalifa said viciously. Shen Yuan naturally understood the principle of eradicating the roots and acquiesced to Khalifa's statement. After getting the answer, Khalifa felt warm in her heart. Shen Yuan was not wary of him at all. Isn't he afraid that he will take the opportunity to run away? Thinking of this, Khalifa was a little moved. He immediately chased after the girl. After successfully eliminating the pirates on Longchain Island, we have to do a big thing next. Shin Yuan hesitated whether to eat the thunder fruit, but turned his head and looked at Xiong and Enel standing aside. Come here, kid. Joan and Enel looked at each other and saw the enthusiasm in each other's eyes. This fruit is the Logia thunder fruit. Which of you will eat it? Enel looked at Joan, then at another devil fruit. Instead of answering this question, he asked another question. Brother, I want to become your teacher. Shin Yuan nodded with satisfaction and said, You are my person if you board my ship. There is no need for waste on my ship, so you must continue to make breakthroughs and progress in the future. Enel was ecstatic and took the most important step. Joan, who had been silent all this time, said cautiously, Can you give me this fruit, Captain? Sure, Shin Yuan said, and handed the thunder fruit in his hand to Xiong. Xiong was not pretentious. She just took a bite of the fruit. Crack! Joan's instant pain mask. This taste is hard to describe. I wipe it. What is this smell? I can't explain it. I have never encountered this kind of smell since I was a child, and I have never heard of it. True. Unheard of. This fruit is a new animal devil fruit, an ancient species. In the form of a saber-toothed tiger, Enel, do you want to eat it? Enel shook his head and did not take the fruit. Forget it. This fruit is too rubbish. I'll find you a stronger devil fruit when the time comes. After saying that, he threw the devil fruit into Rayleigh's arms and quietly waited for the report. Crack, click, click. Unexpectedly, this silly boy Xiong actually ate the entire devil fruit. Vomit! Xiong's face changed again and again, revealing an expression as if she had been violently attacked. After eating the thunder fruit, Xiong's little hands were wrapped with lightning. Fierce thunder and lightning surrounded Xiong's body, making her immediately forget her worries. Boom! A bolt of lightning struck the ground violently, blasting a big crater out of the hard ground. This kind of power. Ha ha ha. Xiong's little face instantly brightened, and she continued to experiment with the devil fruit's abilities. Shin Yuan looked happy. It seemed that someone would be able to light a barbecue in the future. Sir, we know the Marine stronghold, but the Lieutenant General of the Marine headquarters seems to know what is happening outside and is coming here. The big man made an urgent report, his face full of anxiety. Hey, good job. You can go die. After saying that, he stretched out his fingers and left a big hole in his Tianling cap. Boom! The big man fell to the ground, even looking a little anxious. What's wrong with you? The flying squirrel was stunned, paused, and continued. You are Marine Headquarters Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel. What are you doing? The flying squirrel was stunned again, standing there at a loss. No. If you let me pretend to be 13, will I die? No, you can't. The flying squirrel closed his eyes tightly and tried to control his anger. What's the business of Shinigami with a bounty of 630 million belly? Has Laozi's bounty increased? Shin Yuan scratched his head and looked at Flying Squirrel with a puzzled look on his face. The Flying Squirrel took out a reward sheet, turned it over, and threw it towards Shin Yuan. Took it. The photo above remains unchanged, except that the bounty has increased to 100 million belly. Okay. So you hand over the Xiao fruit yourself? Or should I kill you and find it myself? The flying squirrel's face darkened, and he tightened the knife in his hand, ready to take action immediately. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel, I advise you to obediently hand over the Xiao fruit. Flying Squirrel glanced at Shin Yuan disdainfully, then raised his sword and pointed it at Shin Yuan. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel, I. Before he finished speaking, the flying squirrel, which was more than 10 meters away, was suddenly punched in the abdomen. It couldn't help but vomit blood and its eyes were wide open. He was knocked away by this punch and flew more than 10 meters. What about you? Do you still want to arrest me? No more arrests, sir. I know where the Xiao fruit is. Please come with me. 3 minutes later, Shin Yuan walked out of the Marine base with the Xiao fruit in his hands with satisfaction. Before leaving, he glanced at the unconscious flying squirrel on the ground. I told you to be good. Why are you so rude? After saying that, the group of people disappeared on the Long Chain Island. The flying squirrel listened to Shen Yuan's taunt and stood up, his chest rising and falling, and blood was still flowing slowly from the corner of his mouth. Report this to Sengoku Fleet Admiral. The Marines nodded one after another, not daring to ask any more questions, and hurried back to the Marine base. After saying this sentence, the flying squirrel almost lost his breath. Vomit! The flying squirrel spat out a mouthful of blood again. This punch was powerful enough. He only felt that his internal organs had changed places, and they were visiting other places one after another. At the same time, Shen Yuan looked at the navigation needle with some confusion. Is the pointer broken? Shen Yuan patted the navigation pointer and almost smashed it into pieces. Stop taking pictures. There's a magnetic storm happening around us. Magnetic storm? Shen Yuan was stunned. He had heard of this saying, magnetic field explosion? Illiterate? A magnetic storm is? Then Rayleigh started talking about her mother-in-law and made several people sleepy. Okay, stop talking and hurry up. Lousy really wants to replace this broken ship. Fox's pirate ship was destroyed by Shen Yuan and disappeared from the sea, and all the treasures on it were packed and taken away by Smoker and others. Smoker, have you thought about it? Shen Yuan said slightly while still lying on the recliner. Smoker didn't answer, his eyes full of struggle. I recommend that you return to Marine headquarters, show your strength, and be promoted to Lieutenant General. This is your bright future. As for Dasky, he will continue to practice swordsmanship with me for several years. Dasky pushed up her glasses and nodded, without retorting, but a blush appeared on her face. So I suggest you return to Marine headquarters and report the truth to Sengoku about what happened during our trip. Smoker was stunned. Even those things have to. Of course, warring states must know about that matter. He will know it without you telling him. Then I will. Smoker was full of reluctance, thinking about every bit of his past, the days of hard training, and the days when he was ordered by Shen Yuan. The more he thought about it, the darker Smoker's face became, and in the end he became a little angry. Having said this, Smoker nodded and accepted Shen Yuan's proposal. His eyes were firm as if he wanted to join the party. As my eldest disciple, I will teach you another skill. This skill can reach heaven and earth and can determine the world with one palm. Smoker's eyes lit up and he nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. Give. Shen Yuan took out a small notebook, which Shen Yuan worked on overnight. Smoker eagerly took the book and saw 4 big words on the cover. Sunflower Collection. Turning to the first page, 8 big words appeared in Smoker's eyes again. If you want to practice this skill, you must first retreat from the palace. Smoker's face returned to its normal color, which was, of course, black. After following Shen Yuan out to sea for nearly a month, Smoker has gradually been assimilated by Shen Yuan. With a smile on my face, MMM in my heart. Ha 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 ha. Shameless laughter came and fell in Smoker's ears. Smoker couldn't help but relax and started laughing too. Okay, I won't tease you anymore, this is the one. It is another treasure book, which records some of Shen Yuan's insights on hockey and the 6 marine styles. For example, how can an iron block be moved and used in combination with a finger gun, a lantern foot, etc. Others are like the combination of shading and moonwalk, as well as specific guidance methods for armed color hockey, and so on. Smoker closed the book with gratitude and bowed deeply to Shen Yuan. Thank you, Master, for your careful teaching. This disciple will not disgrace the Master. With that said, Smoker prepared to leave. But Shen Yuan quit. Did you move all these treasures before you left? Smoker. It's the new year in the first month. Shen Yuan hummed a little tune while holding the phone, listening to the chattering reports of the person on the other side. New. Shen Yuan hung up the phone and looked at the sea with deep eyes. There's some interesting information in Crocodile. The world government has sent members of CP6 to contact us. The question now is, should we get rid of them or let them go? Rayleigh's wise eyes looked again without any hesitation. It can penetrate. Shen Yuan smiled. This Rayleigh is really smart. What means should be used? Kidnap for ransom, or torture them to extract confessions, and then extract all valuable information from them. Rayleigh smiled. Life or death was uncertain. Khalifa listened to Rayleigh's story and instantly recalled some bad scenes. Okay, let's go to the capital of Seven Waters to make some noise. Everyone nodded, and of course Khalifa also nodded mechanically, falling into a hellish memory. While everyone was thinking, Shen Yuan suddenly jumped into the sea under the astonished eyes of the group. Plop! It disappeared instantly without a trace. Everyone was speechless and didn't know what to say as they watched Shen Yuan disappear. In no time, Shen Yuan slowly emerged from the sea with a tuna in his arms and climbed up step by holding on to the ship's rail. Dasiki, let's eat braised fish today. Dasky showed a strange expression. Her eyes seemed to be asking something. Braised tuna? Although she thought so, Dasky nodded and dragged the tuna into the kitchen. Looks like we need to find a chef. Speaking of chefs, a place instantly popped into Shen Yuan's mind. Bharati restaurant on the sea. After all, it can be regarded as a check-in place. If you don't go, will it be a waste? Shen Yuan fell into deep thought again. Is Shapu also on the Grand Line now? Maybe he still has to go through hardships, right? After thinking about it, Shen Yuan put his arms around Khalifa's slim waist and pulled her into his arms. Why is our beauty unhappy? Don't worry, you won't see these scenes again in the future. After finishing speaking, Shen Yuan kissed Khalifa's rosy face gently. Khalifa's face turned redder and she couldn't help but said shyly, Boss, you are sexually harassing. Puff. Rayleigh also blushed and quickly turned to look at the sea. I didn't expect that as I get older, I can still see such crude methods of flirting with girls. Oral techniques? Cheong was currently staring at a medical book with a serious look on her face, praising it secretly as she read. What an excellent medical technique. Kid, go and train with Enel, or I'll beat you to death. Joan was startled, closed the book, and immediately walked to Enel's side, walking with him. Zamabu is the first step in Shen Yuan's special training. The second step is naturally to drive the stakes while riding the horse. For the third step, just follow Garp's training method and throw it directly into the sea for training or actual combat. But now that Cheong has eaten the fruit, there are no decent pirate groups around, and now Shen Yuan doesn't know what training method to use. Thinking about it carefully, he is relatively reassured about Cheong's strength. Even without learning domineering, relying on the strength of the thunder fruit is enough to deal with or even defeat. But there is no need for unscientific waste on his ship. Let's talk about myself, whether it's fighting or kicking skills, swordsmanship or fruits. Of course, I will talk about it later. I have no shortcomings. I am a veritable hexagonal warrior. Thinking of this, Shen Yuan was determined. It is an excellent method to train Cheong, just like training Dusky. Dasky's training method is relatively mild. The first is to train willpower and stand on one's head for several days in a row. The second is to increase your strength, constantly temper your body, and surpass yourself. The last step, of course, is to guide the armed color. Shen Yuan already has a perfect system for how to guide armed colors. First of all, you must be a human being. Secondly, you must have hands and feet. And finally, you must have this belief. After a beating from Shen Yuan, basically, it can lead to armed domineering. Of course, it varies from person to person. If she is a weak woman, Shen Yuan may be more gentle. Looking at the people in front of me walking steadily, he started tinkering with the system again. After adding all the skill points to the speed bonus, the speed was faintly approaching the peak, which made Shen Yuan scratch his head for a moment. A moment of discomfort. It's uncomfortable. It's so uncomfortable. It's so uncomfortable. It's so uncomfortable. Khalifa looked at Shen Yuan, who looked crazy, and a question mark popped up in his head. Question mark. Shen Yuan silently put away the system panel with a deep look. The design drawings of ancient weapon, Pluton, are in the capital of Seven Waters. The voice was not loud, but this news made everyone present slightly stunned. How do you know? Rayleigh sat up from another lounge chair and looked at Shen Yuan with burning eyes. Let me ask you a question. If you had the strength to fight the world government, would you go to full-scale war with the world government? Rayleigh closed her eyes and thought for a full minute before speaking tremblingly. If possible, This move surpasses Roger's achievements and is enough to shock the world. Enel had a shocked expression at first, and then changed to an expression of reverence. The warlike genes in the body are faintly pulsing. Do you think you are strong enough to fight against the world government now? No, I'm not conceited to this extent. The revolution has not yet succeeded, and you still need to work hard. However, this does not mean that it cannot be used in the future. Ancient weapon? That kind of thing is just a burden to me. This sentence was like a bolt from the blue. They understood at this moment. They really understood it. Well said. The sky is covered with dark clouds, and looming lightning hangs in the sky. A gentle breeze blew towards everyone. Everyone looked up. One person was wearing a green robe, and his face could not be seen clearly. You can tell just by looking at his stance that he is terrifyingly powerful. The mysterious man landed on the ship and landed steadily on the deck. His aura was the same as that of Shen Yuan. I understand your deeds. Continue to shine. You are a revolutionary who is going forward. After finishing speaking, a phone bug fell into Shen Yuan's hand. He tightened his grip on the phone in his hand. He, who was usually flamboyant, actually looked a little solemn at this moment. Senior, please take care of me. The mysterious man smiled slightly. Comrade, we will fight side by side one day. As soon as he said this, lightning flashed and thunder roared, and bursts of thunder continued to flash. The dark clouds gradually subsided, and the mysterious man standing on the deck disappeared. Everyone stood there stunned. This scene is deeply imprinted in their hearts. Rayleigh was shocked at first, but then he understood something. A light flashed across his glasses. Then he spoke. The person who came just now, could it be? Shen Yuan said nothing, looking at the phone in front of him thoughtfully. I think it's time to give the world government a kick in the butt. Shen Yuan spoke, put away the phone bug and clenched his fist slightly. A turbulent momentum suddenly broke out. A strong aura enveloped the entire sea area, and all the Poseidon species in the sea around the ship were floating on the sea. What's your plan? Rayleigh whispered. I have an immature idea. Explain it? Dry. Rayleigh. In fact, Shen Yuan did have a rough plan. A crazy move. This may lead to death. Then I won't ask. You can think about it yourself. After saying that, Rayleigh continued to lie on the recliner and read a pornographic book leisurely, making a weird laugh of hee-hee while reading. I think you look like a fool. Rayleigh rolled her eyes at Shen Yuan and continued to look at the little yellow book in her hand. Shen Yuan looked at the horizon. At this moment, his thoughts were far away and very heavy. She's so graceful. Old boss, you are sexually harassing. Khalifa only felt that her thighs were being ravaged. Arrive at the capital of 7 waters and obtain skill points *5. Shen Yuan looked at the 5-point skill reward and fell into ecstasy. Because with these 5 skills, you can break through the level limit. Rapid allocation. The speed has also changed suddenly. Magical body. 100 out of 100. When using speed bonus skills, the body's movement speed is fully enhanced, and the physical strength consumed when traveling long distances is halved. Complete the breakthrough mission. The current level cap is 100. Get phased rewards. Ability absorption. Can absorb devil fruits and convert them into skills. This function will occupy the 5 free skill slots opened after level 80. Wipe. A loud roar came out, and Khalifa retracted Shen Yuan's arm with a dull look on his face. What the hell? What the hell? At this time, Shen Yuan felt like his intestines were filled with regret. Thunderfruit, that is Thunderfruit. Why did I have to pretend that it was given to my own crew? Damn it, I am bound to get the secret fruit. If gods stand in their way, they will kill gods. If they stand in the way of Buddha, they will kill Buddha. That's what I said. Speaking of this, Shen Yuan quickened his steps, leaving everyone behind. Everyone? Is Master feeling a little sick lately? Dasky said gloomily. Exactly, it's like a mental illness. Rayleigh complained. Qiong and Enel murmured in their hearts. You are the only one who can say this, but if I were to say this, a month's training volume may fall directly into one day. Putting aside his disappointed thoughts, Shen Yuan rushed directly to the shipbuilding yard in the capital of 7 Rivers, preparing to use 3 or 4 tons of gold to build a peerless warship. Quickly advance around the shipyard in 1 step or 2. At this glance, I saw 2 children arguing over something. Kids, come here. Uncle will give you sweets. Shen Yuan smiled and waved to the 2 brats. Frankie and Bing Shan looked at each other, and both saw the confusion in each other's eyes. Isn't this person a human trafficker? Bing Shan thought for a while, but Frankie walked forward carelessly and started talking to Shen Yuan. Are you a bastard who is a criminal in human trafficking? If you meet us today, you will be... Before he finished speaking, Shen Yuan instantly knocked Frankie unconscious with a blow from his hand. Kids, come here. Uncle will give you some sweets. Bing Shan's body trembled, and he was too trembling to move. Moved? Answer. Don't dare to move. Sir, what do you need? You. Bing Shan didn't dare to say any more because he saw an emotion called greed in Shen Yuan's eyes. Take me to Tom. After saying this, Bing Shan didn't dare to be careless. He glanced at Frankie, who fainted and couldn't help but trembled all over again. This way, sir. After saying that, everyone followed him one by one, heading straight towards the room where Tom was. Frankie fell at the door and woke up leisurely, looking around with a dull look on his face. What's wrong with me? An idea flashed in Frankie's mind. Yes, that's right, that guy hit me just now. He interrupted the film for me. Frankie instantly became angry. He kept turning around to search for Shen Yuan's figure. Lousy will give that bastard a good beating if he finds him. Frankie stamped his feet angrily. Besides, Shen Yuan, the culprit, is already sitting in front of Tom. He folded his arms and stretched out his calves to rest on the table. The expression on his face was very arrogant. Sir, what is your surname? My surname is Shen Yuan. Tom nodded. I'm Tom. What do you want? Shen Yuan did not mention Pluton for the time being, but waved his hand towards Cheong beside him. Clang! A large bag of golden clock fragments was placed on the table by Joan, shining with a luxurious light under the office lights. Weigh how much gold this is, and we will build a ship that can travel around the world. Tom's reaction was not that intense, but this scene excited Bing Shan beside him to death. Sir, you said you wanted to build a ship. Then Frankie. Before he finished speaking, Bing Shan seemed to realize something and closed his mouth instantly. Tom raised his eyebrows and said, What? Nothing, nothing. Bing Shan sneered and excused himself. Sir, I've accepted your business. It may take a long time. Don't worry about this. Now I have something to talk to Mr. Tom. Tom raised his eyebrows again, looked at Bing Shan, and finally let him leave the office temporarily. Shen Yuan also gave Dasiki a look, and several people followed him and exited the room. Can you tell me now, what's the matter? Shen Yuan shook his head. Have ears? Tom was stunned and began to look around at the surrounding environment. As he looked around, a bang sound was heard instantly. Little mouse, did you let me catch you? Shen Yuan smiled and smashed the wall behind him with his big hand. Holding a CP6 member's neck, he threw him to the ground with a smile. He stepped heavily on his back. Puff! A large mouthful of blood spurted out, staining a large area of the floor red. Wow! CP was picked up by Shen Yuan again, with murderous intent in his eyes. But after a second thought, he still spoke gloomily. What did the world government send you to do? CP refused to speak and shut up tightly. Enel Dasky comes in. Everyone searches for the surrounding spies and cripples everyone they see. Do you understand? The door slowly opened, and Enel and Dasky came in together. At first sight, they saw the CP members with blood on their faces, who were trying to struggle out of Shen Yuan's big hand. Enel, have you ever killed anyone? Enel shuddered. This day has finally come. Tom was a little scared. This scene happened so quickly and left a deep impression on his young mind. Ahem. You are a heinous criminal. If you kill me, do you want to declare war on the world government? He smiled slightly. All the people who have said this to me in the past have passed. Huh? What is the first 7? CP members shook their heads and clenched their teeth tightly. Today he will be a martyr. Die for his country. What a tough guy. Saying that, Shen Yuan pulled out the shigur from Tashi. The knife was inserted right into his waist. Ah! A scream came out of the office, instantly attracting most of the boat workers, and they rushed here. When the boatman and his party arrived at Tom's office, shocked to see Bingshan standing at the door at a loss. At this moment, his forehead was covered with cold sweat, and he was staring at the picture in the cat's eyes. Master Bingshan, what's wrong? Bingshan turned his head and made a gesture to signal everyone not to be restless. This scene made all the boatmen extremely curious, and they crowded in one after another. Shen Yuan had already noticed the movement outside and couldn't help turning his head to look at Tom. He understood instantly, walked out of the room, and began to evacuate the people outside. It has calmed down outside, but it has not calmed down inside. Ah! 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 There were screams in the room, which were heartbreaking. Pain. It hurts so much. It hurts so much. At this time, the inside of the room looked like an execution chamber. CP was completely mounted on the wall, and there were dozens of bloody wounds on his waist and abdomen. Although several people tortured him severely, this CP member still did not speak. It's really tough. Shen Yuan put down the knife and reached out to find a toothpick from his desk. That's right, it's a toothpick. The toothpick instantly covers the armed color and domineering. An ordinary toothpick instantly exploded with an aura that would never happen again in its life. Toothpick. Did you see it, Grandpa? I will be proud of my ancestors in this life. The toothpick followed the trajectory of Shen Yuan's force and struck out vigorously. It was inserted directly into CP's fingers. A scream came out again. Ah! CP only felt a heartbreaking pain flowing from Tianling Gai to the soles of his feet, and finally gathered in his heart. As we all know, 10 fingers connect one heart. I don't ask you for anything, let's play a game. I ask you to answer. If you are wrong, I will stick it. If you are right, I will let it go. CP didn't say anything, staring at Shen Yuan with a bit of resentment and a bit of fear. Captain, this? Cheong held an unconscious CP member in her hand and just took a look at the scene inside. In an instant, he fell from the clouds to the bottom. Captain, Dasky and Khalifa also arrived belatedly, and the CP members in their hands fell to the ground. This scene happened again. Khalifa goes out and waits. Everyone must cross this hurdle. Khalifa was stunned, but then he shook his head at Shen Yuan. Take 2 quick steps. He arrived behind Shen Yuan in an instant. Okay, stand aside and don't make any sound. Khalifa nodded and took his arm. Shen Yuan ignored everyone and took out the Supreme Quick sign and waved it in front of the CP members. Let me ask you, who is the child of the Bull Demon King and the Iron Fan Princess? The latter was stunned and began to think. Question mark. Seeing that the other party didn't answer, Shen Yuan extended his Supreme Quick sign. He pointed at the second finger of his left hand and pricked it hard. Ah? Okay, next question, black cat or white cat? Which cat can catch mice? CP was stunned again. This outrageous question made him even forget about the pain. Maybe. Without waiting for CP's answer, a finger was inserted hard by the toothpick again. Ah? You asked me a few questions and I knew how to do it. Shen Yuan nodded, looking at the toothpick in his hand and lost in thought. If you ask me, I will do it. If you ask me, I will do it. Shen Yuan nodded again, indicating that he understood. Tell me, will a child born between a person with abilities and another person with abilities have the physique to eat 2 devil fruits? CP. Well, don't say it. Really don't say it. Isn't it impossible? What if the gene mutates? The toothpick was easily inserted into the 4th finger of the left hand, and the heart-wrenching pain converged from the fingertips to the heart. Ah! CP cried. This time he really cried. Tears couldn't stop sliding down his face. He looked very sad. Can you fucking ask me some questions that normal people can answer? Okay, then tell Lousy all the information you know, especially the small actions of the world government and the mission you are about to perform. CP looked overjoyed and opened his mouth like he was pouring beans out of his mouth. Our main task is to monitor you, and our other task is to investigate the base of the Revolutionary Army and... Stop talking. One of his teammates couldn't help shouting, "I'm giving you face, right?" A toothpick was accidentally popped out by Shen Yuan. This toothpick drilled into his mouth at an extremely fast speed, straight through it. The speaker had no reaction at the time. I shut up for no reason. It hurt for no reason. Go on. There was no toothpick this time, and Shen Yuan replaced it with a fruit knife on the desk next to him. CP did not dare to neglect and continued to speak in fear. The 5 elders are very afraid of you now, so they sent us to monitor you. Yeah, keep talking. Also, we have another action on this trip, which is for the fruits of the operation. Yeah, keep talking. We have so many tasks, I really don't know what else. Yeah, keep talking. My third uncle's brother-in-law is getting married today. I'm going to see. Keep going. Shen Yuan continued to speak with a dark face. I still have the cigar I bought yesterday but didn't smoke in my pocket. Take it away. Keep going. Shen Yuan stood up. The fruit knife in his hand slowly turned black. CP saw the fruit knife rushing towards his thigh and pierced it. A heartbreaking pain swept through him again, causing him to yell out uncontrollably. Oh! Keep talking. If you don't satisfy Laozi, Laozi will chop you into more than 3,000 pieces and throw you into the sea to feed the fish. Worry. Why can you say such cold words from the mouth of 37 degrees? It can be said. CP's brain couldn't help but work at high speed, and he began to think about valuable information. I know. Do you want to get Pluton's design drawings? We have another mission, and we are here to go undercover in the capital of 7 Waters. The world government suspects that Pluton's production blueprints are hidden in the capital of 7 Waters. Yeah, keep talking. You'd better keep stabbing me. As soon as these words came out, the whole place fell into a dead silence. You could hear a needle drop. Do you still remember the game I played with you before? I asked you to answer. If you are not satisfied, I will cut a piece. If you are satisfied, I will stick it on you. CP6, what the hell is it posted on? But he still struggled to nod. How many espionage forces does the world government have? Cough, 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 cough. The world government has the supreme power of domination in the world, and there are other CP members under it, including CP-1-9. CP-9 has been destroyed, and now it is trying to recruit new members. Shen Yuan nodded with satisfaction and continued to ask. Besides, what other special forces are there? CP thought for a moment before continuing to explain. The God's Guards under the world government. In addition, there are also 12 Divine Guards, the Palace Guards, 12 Divine Guards. Most of them are powerful animal devil fruits, and their duty is to guard Mariajoya's safety at all times. Shen Yuan nodded, very satisfied. Tell me, where is the Golden Lion? I really don't know this. Because of the special ability of the Golden Lion, we have not yet been able to detect the location of the Golden Lion. Shen Yuan was satisfied, turned around and clapped his hands. Enel understood and took the knife from Shen Yuan's hand, trembling and not daring to do it. Speed up and let him go peacefully. As soon as these words came out, CP6's frown instantly relaxed and seemed to relax. Shen Yuan turned his back to the CP6 members and waved his hand. Then he walked out of the room without saying a word. Let's do it. Enel held the fruit knife, shivering, and closed his eyes tightly. The knife suddenly stabbed his neck. A large amount of blood burst out instantly, and the CP members who were already dying passed away safely at this moment. Enel threw the fruit knife in a panic and fell to the floor with a thud. Blood. It's blood. Enel's expression gradually turned to fear. How can you become stronger if your hands are not stained with the enemy's blood? Cheong didn't waste any time and kicked another spy member hard. Immediately afterwards, another wave of feet flew out quickly. This Lan Jiao attacks boldly and cuts off the opponent directly in the waist. Wow! Blood flowed out in large tracts, staining the entire floor red. Tom was very nervous, looking at Shen Yuan standing in front of him with fear in his heart. It's okay. They are all here to monitor me. As soon as these words came out, Everyone looked at Shen Yuan in shock. There was silence in the room for a long time, and you could hear a pin drop. It took a moment for Tom to react. Well, please come with me. After taking a look at the people who were executing the spies, Shen Yuan turned around and left. Russian territory. In a dark room, Tom and Shen Yuan were sitting on the floor. Tom was the first to ask, "Sir, can you explain the situation to me?" Hearing this, Shen Yuan pondered slightly. Then he began to tell Tom about his glorious achievements. Is that so? After hearing the whole story, Tom gave Shen Yuan a meaningful look. The former continued to speak. I know that you have been sentenced to death. I have a suggestion here that may save your life. Tom's eyes suddenly burst into light, but then he returned to normal, smiled and said, a good man should face all the responsibilities of his crimes calmly. Shen Yuan raised his eyebrows after hearing this. Are you just going to abandon Frankie and Bingshan and die in the world government's conspiracy? Tom stopped talking. Blind student, you discovered Hua Dian. The former continued. Before that, you have to explain some things. Even if you want to protect some things for the rest of your life, the world government will not allow you to do so. Seeing Tom's astonished face, Shen Yuan was not in a hurry and continued to speak unhurriedly. I know you have something important in your hands. Once this kind of thing falls into the hands of the world government, it will be difficult to take it back. The former spoke eloquently. The words are like the whispers of the devil, constantly attacking Tom's heart. Now, I need an answer. After saying this, his eyes were fixed on Tom. Well, after thinking for a moment, Tom sighed heavily and then slowly said, I do have the design drawings of ancient weapon Pluton in my hand. With all due respect, what is your identity? What identity? Shen Yuan smiled and said, just an ordinary adventurer. An adventurer? The old Roger seems to be very similar to you. When Tom said this, some memories were instantly brought back. I have a very mature plan. Tom was stunned for a moment and nodded, like an obedient child. I don't care how you die, but you must build my boat first. Tom, don't worry, I will definitely build this ship. A man must be responsible for the ship he builds. Roger took the boat I built and sailed around the world, and I am proud of it. Shen Yuan waved his hand nonchalantly. He was not very excited. Instead, he looked at Tom with a look of fool. This look made him feel a little embarrassed. Pluton, I have no idea at the moment, but we can't fall into the hands of the world government. So you have two tasks now. One is to protect this blueprint, and the most important thing is to build my ship. Tom nodded without retorting. After your death, I will ensure that the world government will not cause trouble to your two disciples. This is my sincerity. Cooperation achieved. Tom agreed very much. So, why don't you go build a ship quickly? This time, Tom's office, Dasky and the others were sitting on the sofa, quietly watching Bingshan instruct the boatman to clean up the room. Bang! The door was opened. After entering, Shen Yuan sat down on the swivel chair, saying nothing, just waiting for someone quietly. Bingshan was full of curses and closed the door without knowing it. He walked to the door and slowly closed the door. Subsequently, bang! Another sound of gate of opening came, and Tom arrived belatedly holding a drawing. Bingshan was speechless for a while. His face darkened. It's better to close the door. Excuse me, please take a look. What do you think of this drawing? Tom smiled and handed the drawing to Shen Yuan. The latter took the drawing and carefully appreciated the contents on it while looking at it. Good. So good. What an ingenious design. Ingenious workmanship. Really ingenious workmanship. Tom had a smile on his face and seemed to be very impressed by Shen Yuan's appreciation. Okay, you can do it. It seems like I have become a subordinate? Tom thought this, but he nodded numbly and walked out of the room slowly. After finishing the ship matters, Shen Yuan had time to talk about household matters. Shen Yuan asked, how long has Smoker been gone? After hearing this, Dasky began to think, and after a while he opened his mouth and said, I've been gone for nearly a week. You haven't arrived at Marine headquarters in a week? Are you on a dead end? At the same time, Smoker was driving a small boat and was floating on the sea with a dull expression. Sneeze. Smoker sneezed, sniffed, and shook his head. Is it cold? Smoker couldn't help but put on the coat beside him, trembling, and looked at the sea. What the hell? I won't get lost and die here, right? While he was thinking, Smoker caught a glimpse of a ship sailing slowly on the sea in the distance between his brows. On the deck was an old man with gray hair wearing a marine cloak. Old man! Old man! Smoker stood up and hurriedly waved his hands towards the battleship. Hey, old man! Old man! The ship seemed to have noticed Smoker. The old man raised his eyes, and the ship turned around and quickly moved towards Smoker. Holy shit! Smoker! Is it Smoker? Smoker! It's Smoker! The moment the trainee sailors on the ship saw Smoker, there are surprises, but more importantly, the joy of meeting again after a long separation. These people rushed to say hello to Smoker. Teacher Zifa? Smoker opened his mouth in surprise. This was the first time he saw his teacher show vicissitudes of life. The current state is completely different from the state that I was taught before. At this moment, he seemed to be more than 10 years older and unshaven, making Smoker feel that this man was about to be buried. The 62-year-old Zifa stared at Smoker with his hands folded across his chest, and Smoker did the same. The two just stared at each other, speechless for a long time. Smoker, I heard you deserted your post? Zifa looked at Smoker seriously. Teacher Zifa, Smoker, your breath is different now. Zifa continued to speak. Teacher Zifa, I actually want to practice and train myself before following. With that said, Zifa casually took out a wanted notice, and the portrait on it was that of Shen Yuan. The new Shinigami, Shen Yuan, had a bounty of more than 500 million as soon as he went to sea. Unexpectedly, he kidnapped all our Marine lieutenant generals. After saying this, no one spoke. Smoker, tell me how you feel. Smoker nodded and said, he is a man who knows right from wrong, hates evil as much as he hates it, and never shows mercy. But it's just a bit of nonsense, and doesn't seem to care at all about the forces of all parties. Upon hearing these words, Zifa's originally serious face instantly relaxed. Do you hate evil as much as you hate it? The former general of the Marine headquarters, known as No Kill, has never been so powerless as he is now. His family was killed by pirates, and he began to hate pirates. Where is he now? Zifa said calmly. Perhaps we have reached the capital of Seven Waters by now. Zifa nodded, stretched out his hand, and pulled Smoker onto the battleship. So, you're still a Marine, right? Smoker nodded silently, slowly took out a cigar, and started smoking. Seven Rivers City Shipyard. At this time, Shen Yuan was holding a lunchbox and eating the food in front of him. Aha! As he ate the food one bite at a time, Shen Yuan looked around from time to time. Ha 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 ha. Mr. Dang Dang, the construction of your ship has begun? Shen Yuan nodded and placed the lunchbox on the ground. After so many days, Shen Yuan discovered a major problem. Where's Rayleigh? Shen Yuan's head was filled with questions, and his face was full of doubts. Rayleigh? I didn't see it yesterday? Tom was also very confused. Forget it. It's okay if the old man doesn't look for it. After saying that, Shen Yuan stopped dwelling on the matter and smiled slightly. Just as the two were chatting, there was an explosion from the port in the distance. Boom! This sound should be the sound of an exploding artillery shell, right? The pirates are coming. The pirates are coming. Run. It's a pirate. The crowd suddenly fell into panic. All the residents of the Seven Waters City began to flee for their lives. But Shen Yuan was very emotional when he saw this scene. Scenes like this have happened often since he went to sea. Are you interested in taking a look? Shen Yuan said evilly towards Tom. Of course, I am not afraid of pirates like this. After saying that, the two of them rushed to the port together. This time, Seven Waters City Port. Marine and his party are launching a fierce attack on this group of pirates. He is indeed Captain Ace who has returned from the New World. He is truly worthy of his name. Zifa punched hard while taunting his opponent. Humph, you old guy. Go to hell. The pirate group led by Ace has just returned to the Grand Line from the New World. The ship's hull was damaged and I wanted to go to the capital of Seven Waters for repairs. It's so good that I met Zifa and his party here. At this time, the trainee sailors behind Zifa were gearing up and ready to show off their skills. My students, try to protect yourself. Don't die here. Everyone heard Zifa's roar, and everyone couldn't help but trembled. Is that armed color hockey? That is the same armed color hockey as Mr. Zifa. I don't know who in the crowd shouted like this. I was already extremely nervous and became even more nervous. Smoker's face turned dark. You saw it when you saw it. Why did you say it? To increase the momentum of the pirates? Said. A figure holds a knife in his hand. The blade flashed with cold light, and it cut straight towards Marine's new chutes. The trainee sailor looked at the bloody battlefield in front of him and felt his hands and feet feel cold. My whole body was trembling, shaking like chaff in a sieve. Bang! The long knife in the figure's hand clashed with another weapon, and there was a sound of gold and iron clashing. Chong. Tina doesn't like her companions being killed. She doesn't like it very much. Tina held a long knife in her hand, flicked the figure away, held the handle of the knife, and gasped. Ha ha. You're such a nice girl. I'll tie you back to the boat and let the brothers have a good time. The two figures were intertwined, making jingling sounds constantly. It's hot outside, but Shen Yuan was squatting on the beach, holding a handful of popcorn in his hand and eating nonstop. Lao Tang, what do you think of that girl doll? Tom frowned and kept looking. Didn't you see it? I think that young man is pretty good. Yes, Teacher Tang was pointing to Smoker. At this time Smoker showed off Kamui. 10 hands covered with armed domineering force, one by one, shuttle back and forth in the battlefield. Boom! A pirate was knocked into the sea by Smoker and returned to the mother's arms like a baby swallow returning to its nest. Tina. Smoker's body turned into smoke and swooped in quickly, and everything around him was covered in smoke. Tina was in the middle of a battle with that figure and was slightly at a disadvantage. Just when Tina lost her strength, the long knife whizzed and slashed towards Tina. Bite! Another sound of gold and iron clashing came out. What? A hero saves a beauty? Shen Yuan was stunned and didn't notice that most of the popcorn in his hand had been taken away by Lao Tang. Where's my popcorn? Shen Yuan looked at Tom. The two of them were arguing and did not take this battle into consideration at all. Boy, why don't you run? Several pirates had already landed ashore, and their heads were burning as they watched the fight. Makabaka, we are fighting in front. Are we here to perform a shadow puppet show for you? Thinking about it, this little guy is dead. Yes, just die. He was instantly killed by Shen Yuan's compressed finger gun. When he was dying, this little guy seemed to be grinning and wanted to say something. No, bro. Spit out Lousy's popcorn. Spit it out. Tom was grabbed by Shen Yuan's neck and shook for a while, feeling that his brain was almost shaken. At this time, Smoker resisted the figure's slash, and his right hand suddenly covered his weapon color. In an instant, the jet-black armed color was domineering. The fist is fierce, attacking the opponent's abdomen fiercely. Bang! It was beaten more than 10 meters by Smoker, and one end was inserted into the brick ground on the far coast. Boom! Rubbles flew, the surrounding ground cracked, and there was no movement for an instant. Tina, are you okay? Thank you, Tina. Thank you. Tina looked at Smoker in surprise. What surprised him was not Smoker's heroic rescue of the beauty, but his armed, domineering attitude. You just sneaked away for more than a month and mastered the armed domineering power? I'd like to thank you for such a good thing. Tina? Tina? Smoker looked at the stunned Tina and shook his head, turned around and flew towards where Zifa was. Bang! Another loud noise. Zifa and Smoker worked together to blast is in front of them dozens of meters away. Ease felt his head was dizzy for a while, and as his consciousness gradually blurred, he suddenly activated his fruit ability. Gigantic blast. Giant blast? What do you mean? Isi grinned with a big mouthful of blood, and he didn't forget to show off before he died. This is my fruit ability, the explosive fruit. My breath was left on all of you just now, and this breath is enough to blow all of you up into the sky. Ise grinned and took out another pill. Ready to take it? At this moment, everyone was panicked. as expected of a pirate from the New World. Can you actually control the breath explosion? Although it is of some use to ordinary people, but to the strong, it is like beating an egg against a stone. Tina opened her mouth, and just as she recovered from her daze, she fell into a daze again. The aura exploded. If it really exploded, a whole ship of trainee sailors would be in danger. Smoker gritted his teeth. Helpless. The teacher has never taught you this. This kind of scene. The teacher has never taught you this? Zifa was also covered in cold sweat and was quickly approaching as on the moonwalk. Bang! A huge force penetrated his chest, and the breath that was about to explode instantly shrank and returned to calm. An extremely fierce bombardment suddenly appeared, and then it was drawn out suddenly. Beat EC to death. Bang! Ys fell into the sea and died instantly. Shen Yuan landed on the deck of the marine ship and greeted Tina with a smile. Hello, Tina? Stabilizing his body, Shen Yuan shouted loudly at Smoker. In this case, the caster should be killed. Do you understand? The battle is over. Zifa directed a group of marines to clean up the messy scene and turned his head to look at Shen Yuan. You are the master who taught Smoker domineering, right? Shen Yuan nodded. This was the second strong man that Shen Yuan admired. The family of General Marine, a senior user of armed color hockey known as No Kill, was killed by pirates. Ridiculous and sad. Hello, General Zifa. This is the first time I meet you. I am Shen Yuan. Zifa was slightly startled. Very polite kid. Hello. I am no longer a general. Zifa held Shen Yuan's hand tightly and kept looking at Shen Yuan. But why do you know me? I have heard the reputation of General Zifa many times from my grandfather. Zifa slapped his forehead. Yes, this is Garp's grandson. That's it, kid Shen Yuan. You are a wanted criminal now. Do you know that? Shen Yuan's face darkened, but he still nodded. Then you still dare to stand on the deck of the marine warship? Of course, I am sure that General Zifa can distinguish right from wrong. Zifa was very pleased with the compliment, and he opened his mouth and smiled happily, looking at the old man with the vicissitudes of life. He was laughing relaxedly at this moment. Everyone's hearts seemed to be touched. Kid, your bounty is very high. What exactly did you do? Zifa frowned slightly and stared at Shen Yuan in front of him. It's nothing, just killed a few people. Zifa's frown deepened. Who is it? It seems that Zifa will not give up until he gets an explanation today. It doesn't matter. Shen Yuan doesn't care about taboos anymore. As the saying goes, there are too many lice, but it doesn't itch. Killed several spies. Why? Zifa was surprised at first, but he quickly suppressed the emotion and continued to ask. Because they want to kill me, I kill them. Is this considered a crime? Not too loud, but full of confidence. This is confidence. This is the confidence that comes from strength. If anyone dares to have evil thoughts about me, don't blame me for being ruthless. Zifa's frown slowly relaxed. According to the urine properties of world government, it is not impossible. The first situation is that Shen Yuan's strength is too strong and has attracted the fear of the world government. The second possibility is that what Shen Yuan did touched the interests of the world government. Anyway, thank you today. You saved a whole lot of Marines' future. Zifa scratched his head and said a little embarrassed. General Zifa doesn't have to be like this. What I save is my own belief. Zifa took a deep breath. Hearing this sentence, he instantly brought back memories from a few years ago. He also acted righteously to save lives and injuries, and even pirates couldn't bear to kill him. Why did you kill all the pirates? Zifa was a little confused, and at the same time, this was also his knot. Pirates? Those who commit heinous crimes should be punished. Zifa just listened quietly, extremely seriously. So why do you think they went to sea in the name of pirates? Of course, some pirate groups still make me admire them very much, like Roger, Whitebeard, etc. Finished speaking. When Zifa heard this, his eyes sparkled. According to what you mean, there is another term for pirates, which is adventurers? Correct. Shen Yuan smiled faintly. I want to go to sea to explore the world, and I don't have to go to sea as a pirate. Are you right, General Zifa? Zifa nodded. Maybe this is your dream. I will keep what you said in mind. After saying this, the sailors behind Zifa looked at Shun Yuan with admiration. Especially Tina. She can even stuff an apple into her small mouth. Kid, are your weapons strong? Zifa became interested and started chatting with Shun Yuan. My energy is beyond your imagination. Zifa. Saying that, Shun Yuan raised a hand. The fist suddenly covered the extremely compressed armed domineering force, and it wasn't over yet. Circles of dim mist quickly climbed up. Then streaks of black and white lightning appeared. Conqueror's entanglement? Zifa stood up suddenly, with a look of shock on his face. No, no, no. I call it the dynamic fist of a tiger that descends from the mountain and shouts a tsunami in the dark sky, splitting the mountains and destroying everything. Zifa, Smoker, Tina, everyone. The whole place was silent, and everyone was stunned. After saying this, Shun Yuan stood up suddenly. An extremely fierce momentum burst out. Immediately afterwards, I saw Shun Yuan flying high into the sky, floating above the sea on Moonwalk, and his black fist suddenly landed on the sea. The huge force collided with the endless sea surface. Make a huge noise. Boom! A huge wave was blown up instantly, and water splashed down from the sky, falling on everyone one after another. The seawater within a radius of 10 kilometers is suppressed by pressure. The surrounding seawater can't even close the gap. A big crater was suddenly blasted out of the sea by this huge force. Seeing this scene, Zifa shuddered all over. Zifa was speechless for a moment, but he still spoke to Shun Yuan. Kid, let's have a test. With that said, Zifa stepped out and suddenly landed on the railing of the battleship. Okay. Just what Shun Yuan wanted. Boom! The two fists collided with each other, causing ripples. Zifa nimbly dodged Shun Yuan's fist again. A big swing punch came out, but Shun Yuan lowered his body and dived to avoid the big swing punch. He hugged Zifa's body with both hands and suddenly threw him back. Both sides landed firmly on the coast, and at this time they both assumed fighting postures. Are you ready, General Zifa? Zifa smiled slightly and stepped forward quickly. A tentative straight punch with one hand stabbed quickly, like a sharp dagger. Shun Yuan ducked sideways, grabbed Zifa's arm, and put one hand around his waist. Turn your right foot away from Zifa's right foot. Mongolian wrestling. Zifa was thrown to the ground hard, and there were stars in his eyes. He didn't dare to be careless and adjusted his body shape instantly. The right hand suddenly covered the weapon color, and another straight punch struck. Shun Yuan smiled slightly and stepped on his arm with this power. A foot suddenly stepped on his chest. Another kick blasted towards his chin. Bang! Zifa was hit on the chin by this kick. Fortunately, it was no big deal if he covered his weapon color in advance. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, he suddenly laughed heartily. Haha, this kick is powerful enough. Zifa shook his head and made a sound of popping beans all over his body. His body speed suddenly increased. A jab, as fast as lightning, like a madman. Even so, Shun Yuan still cleverly avoided it. He punched out violently and stabbed his chin again. Zifa also dodged and imitated Shun Yuan's movements in a decent manner. He hugged his waist and wanted to use a Mongolian wrestling. Succeeded. Zifa hugged his waist and pulled out suddenly. Didn't move. At this time, Shun Yuan seemed to be welded to the ground, standing still. Bang! His elbow landed hard on Zifa's lower back. He slapped him to the ground instantly. Boom! Feeling the severe pain in his waist and abdomen, Zifa could no longer support his old body. Zifa suddenly fell to the ground, shook his head, and smiled helplessly. Defeat the plot character Zifa and raise the level to level 82. Ouch! The system that has been silent for a long time is making noise again? Zifa smiled and forced himself to stand up. The strength is pretty good. I didn't even force you to use your full strength. Shun Yuan smiled bitterly. TSK. Don't you see that I'm not motivated yet? Full strength? You don't even need to show your domineering attitude. Even so, Shun Yuan still smiled and nodded. Following such a powerful person, I am sure your achievements will be high in the future. With that said, Zifa called Smoker and Tina over. These are the two disciples I am more optimistic about. I will ask you to teach them for a while. How about it? Shen Yuan closed his eyes and thought, I'm already very tired. Okay, so you still need me to bring an oil bottle with me? He finally shook his head and refused. Next, I have to act on my own. If you force me to do it, I won't have time to care about them. Zifa was stunned. What are you going to do? This matter will be kept secret for the time being. General Zifa will know about it later. Seeing that Shen Yuan was unwilling to say anything, Zifa stopped asking. Smoker, this is your master. You decide whether to stay or go. I will explain it to you at Marine headquarters. Looking at Shen Yuan's stern gaze, Smoker couldn't help but tremble all over. He finally shook his head. I'm a Marine. Zifa nodded and moved his gaze to Tina. Tina also thought for a moment and made the same decision as Smoker. Let me ask, after hearing Shen Yuan's words, who can still lick his face and insist on becoming his disciple? Tina would like to ask, are you noble this year? At this time, Shen Yuan had been baptized by wars one after another and had gone through hardships, and he never looked like he was 14 years old. 14 years old. Tina was stunned and didn't speak again. Zifa was also shocked and unwilling to accept this fact. That's it. If someone comes later, just tell them to practice well. I have something important to attend to. Smoker nodded and agreed happily. Tom, build your ship properly and don't do shabby work for lousy. Tom was eating the popcorn he finally grabbed. Hearing this, he immediately choked and coughed violently. Then Shen Yuan's voice gradually disappeared, and he disappeared on the moonwalk. Zifa glanced at the messy battlefield and sighed helplessly. Such terrifying combat power has not been added to Marine. If so, he is the Admiral, no, the son of the Fleet Admiral. Zifa continued to direct everyone to clean up the battlefield, looking into the distance with deep eyes. Only when Dasky and the others arrived at the port of the Seven Waters capital did they realize that Shen Yuan had already left. Where's the master? Dusky asked. Smoker was overjoyed when he saw that the visitor was Dasky. Desai-chi, how are you doing? I'm living a good life. May I ask where our captain is? Smoker's face fell, and he stretched out his arms and pointed to the horizon. Master has left a long time ago. It's been a while. How did he leave? Dasky still looked curious. Flying away. As soon as these words came out, the whole place fell into deathly silence. Smoker spoke again. Master asked me to tell you before he left, so that you can continue to practice in the capital of Seven Waters and don't fall into laziness. Everyone nodded. Zifa's mind became active. How do you usually train? After saying this, everyone looked at Zifa. I'm telling you, this and this, this and this, this and this. Xiong said gloomily, her expression looking very taboo on this kind of training. Zifa suddenly realized it. Isn't Jinima the same as Garp's training method? But there are some differences. The second half of the Grand Line. This is New World, a paradise for pirates. Moby Dick. Okay, got it. Marco hung up the phone, his expression showing uncontrollable excitement. Marco, what are you so happy about? With Kurizumi's skin color and wearing heavy armor, it was Josie who suddenly asked. Shen Yuan called me just now and said he would come to visit me today. Bista also came forward with a curious expression. I heard that he is a master of swordsmanship. Can you let him fight with me? Chaozi also echoed. I heard that his physical skills are also very powerful. Why don't you also give me a try? Marco looks weird. He has never beaten Shen Yuan. Are you two just looking for a beating? Okay, wait until he comes over and tell him yourself. Say it. Marco flew high into the sky, searching the sea. At this time, Whitebeard also walked out of the captain's room, holding a handful of Song Yunqi in his hand. Everyone was very confused and looked at their father walking out of the cabin with a strange look on his face. Goo-la-la-la, are you here? Whitebeard opened his attack stance, and Song Yunqi's blade instantly covered the concussive force and swung it towards the horizon. Whoosh! An unstoppable slash was swung out with concussive force. Old man, is this how you welcome me? Shen Yuan pulled out Swallowing Heaven to resist the collision. Boom! The force of the shock made Shen Yuan's wrist numb, but the slash was still broken by his sword. Whoosh! The slash was split into two and flew to the side. Tunshin attacks Whitebeard directly. Goo la la la. Whitebeard raised Song Yunxia in his hand and directly tested Shen Yuan's strength against each other. The burst of air waves spread out in circles like ripples. The sky above his head was opened by the power of the two. Kid, are you ready? Of course, the old man is indeed the strongest man in the world. Whitebeard laughs heartily, and the output power of the vibration force in his body continues to slowly increase his strength. Shen Yuan also smiled, swallowing the sky quietly spreading its ghostly aura, and the black mist slowly climbed up the blade, colliding with the power of the shock. Bang! A bang! The sky closed, and the vision of heaven and earth was restored. Whitebeard Song Yunxia stood on the deck and looked at Shen Yuan with a smile. Goolalala! Goolalala! What a good little devil! Everyone was dumbfounded, especially Bista. This kind of attack would be difficult for 10 of you to receive, right? Shen Yuan landed firmly on the deck. He put Tunshin back into the scabbard and looked at the crew members around him. Arrived at Moby Dick. Obtained skill points *5. Old man, I'm here to talk to you about cooperation today. After saying that, Whitebeard laughed heartily again, turned around and entered the captain's cabin. Come in and talk. Shen Yuan didn't show any pretense and followed Whitebeard into the captain's cabin. A group of people outside looked blank. What's going on? What a dangerous brat. Whitebeard raised his wine glass, laughed, and took a sip of wine. Then he slowly said, Which island do you want to attack? Shen Yuan took the wine glass handed by Whitebeard. However, this wine glass is like a bathtub, and it can probably accommodate myself and Dasky Khalifa taking a bath. I want to start a war. Shen Yuan spoke calmly. Whitebeard was stunned and looked over with doubtful eyes. Occupy Kaido's territory and search for the devil fruit I want. It would be best to also get a few contemporary famous knives. This is not a war. This is an invasion. It is an invasion. Having said that, Whitebeard's mind also became active. The big family he had always wanted to build was now complete, and he was dying. Whitebeard, known as the strongest man in the world, at this moment, a different emotion arose in my heart. Boy, what are you going to do? I plan to select people from your group and start training them, and then attack the surrounding Kaido territory to steal the treasure. Whitebeard didn't hesitate at all, and agreed immediately. You can make your choice with confidence. I will definitely support you. However, my sons attach great importance to strength. Don't worry about this, but before that, I have one more thing to do. Whitebeard was stunned, then slowly asked, What do you want to do? Destroy the Island of Justice. Destroy the Island of Justice? Shen Yuan negotiated with Whitebeard for a while. In the end, with the help of Marco, Josie, and Izong sending troops, the matter was settled. Hello, Crocodile? A lazy voice came from the other side of the phone. Hello? What instructions? Crocodile was holding a cup of black tea at the moment, and there was a tied-up man in front of him, whose face could not be seen clearly. I'm going to attack Judiciary Island tomorrow. Do you have the guts? Crocodile spat out a mouthful of black tea and looked shocked. Does this have to be done? Your blowing up the Judiciary Island is a provocation to the majesty of the world government. Majesty? Where is the majesty of the world government? It's like the soles of your shoes. There was silence on the other side of the phone. Silence was Cambridge on Judiciary Island. What do you want to do? Choose the few people you think are the strongest to help me clean up the miscellaneous soldiers. Don't worry about the rest. I'll handle it myself. When this is done, I will give you a small reward. Award? Crocodile took a deep breath. How many years have you not heard this word? Okay. When will it be tomorrow? About 3/4 to noon. Crocodile, what time is it at 3/4 to noon? About 11:30. Crocodile nodded and hung up the phone. He glanced at the spy members kneeling in front of him and couldn't help but frown. You domestic dogs are done, aren't you? You've come to my place more than 10 times in 3 days. Do you think of me as your backyard? The spy members were stunned when they heard this. What kind of back garden? What? Crocodile suddenly stood up and locked his neck tightly. The fruit's power is activated instantly, draining the water out of its body. Throwing the body aside, Crocodile picked up the communication phone book. Ask Mr. 1, Mr. 2, Mr. 3, and Mr. 5 to bring their partners over. I have something to tell them. Crocodile hung up the phone and rubbed his hands, looking excited. I can't even think of attacking Judiciary Island. What a crazy move. A moment, all the members summoned by him stood in front of Lao Sha, waiting for his orders. Bonus, let me ask you, if you were given a chance to challenge the world government, would you do it? Des Bonus trembled after hearing this, and his expression became slightly surprised. It's true that we are a criminal group, but maybe there is no one else who can do this. President, if I can, of course I will be happy to do this kind of crazy behavior. Crocodile smiled, stretched out his hand, and pointed his hook at everyone. What about you? The other people looked at each other, but they all nodded dully. Tomorrow we will follow Shen Yuan to invade Judiciary Island. Your task is to clean up the trash fish. Do you understand? Tomorrow? Got it. Only then did everyone understand. It turns out that the crazy act of attacking Judiciary Island was actually carried out by that devil's organization. Unexpectedly, the first big move was to attack Judiciary Island. It was really cruel. They all felt lucky to have survived in the hands of the plague god. Tomorrow we will hit the road immediately and meet up with Shen Yuan in the capital of Seven Rivers. After the battle begins, you are no longer members of Baroque Studio. You are the crew of Shen Yuan's ship. Do you understand? Everyone agreed one after another, and their little faces turned red. Bonus closed his eyes and meditated, and began to think about tomorrow's course of action. Mr. 5, your ability is explosion, right? Tomorrow, I will leave the task of blowing up the gate of Judiciary Island to you. Mr. 5 nodded, very nervous. He got this explosive fruit by chance. He just ate it a few days ago. Didn't expect this to come in handy? Everyone dismisses, don't be late tomorrow. Say it. Crocodile turned into yellow sand and flew out of the conference room. This moment, Shen Yuan was fiddling with his system. It's been a long time since I took a look at my strength. I took a look at the balance of skill points and saw 9 points left and breathed a sigh of relief. To top it off, it's arrogant. All skill points are allocated, the strength enhancement is filled up, and the strength attribute column changes. Name, Shen Yuan. Age, 14 years old. Identity, Adventurer. Skill, Marine 6 Styles, LV1. Swordsmanship Grandmaster, full level. 3-color hockey, full level. Physical enhancement, full level. Agility enhancement, LV15. Strength enhancement, full level. Speed enhancement, LV12. Immortal King Kong. 100 out of 100. Body of 100 battles. 100 out of 100. Divine Body. 100 out of 100. Power of Titan. 100 out of 100. On the original basis, you can use the power of Shinigami to assist in combat, and the duration depends on the actual situation. Level 82. Randomly receive a phased reward at level 100. Shen Yuan was happy. An attack method that can harm the soul? Even if Tiga comes over today, he still has to leave his tights behind. Back to the capital of Seven Waters. Shen Yuan glanced at it. The group of people had already been waiting on the coast. Captain, what are you doing? Khalifa and Dasky stepped forward and hugged Shen Yuan's arms, just like two little wives. Went to visit the old man with white beard. After saying this, Shen Yuan said seriously, everyone stand still. As soon as these words came out, everyone tensed up. Captain, are you serious? Something big is going to happen? I thought and took a step forward. Yes. A loud shout came, making the boatmen working behind them startled. What are they doing? What about military training? Are all pirates so formal now? Another boatman shook his head. It's easy to get rid of it, but it can be done in military training. Boatman. Dasky. Arrive. Tomorrow we will all attack Judiciary Island. I order you to be the commander-in-chief of the operation and observe the trends on the battlefield at all times. Yes. Dasky's hands were shaking with excitement. This was the first battle under Shun Yuan. Joan, arrive. I order you to be the deputy captain of the War Medical Force. Someone will report to you tomorrow.
Yes.
Xiong's eyes glowed slightly, and there was a sparkle in his eyes. But, the vice captain? Who was the captain? Enel, arrive. You are the general on the left wing of the battle, clearing out the enemy troops on the left.
Yes.
Enel tightened his grip on the golden halberd in his hand. This is a weapon made for him by Shun Yuan using forging technology. It is a weapon that he loves very much. Khalifa is the right winger. Just like that, everyone is ready and will gather here tomorrow. Dismissal of all members. Everyone started preparing for the war. Shin Yuan looked at the sky, and a figure slowly fell down. It was Rayleigh. Boy, why don't you come to me if you have big plans? Rayleigh smiled, and her naive smile instantly gave Shun Yuan a chill. Old man, why have you become so disgusting? Rayleigh took out the Devil Fruit illustrated book from her arms and handed it to Shun Yuan. I took the illustrated book before to identify my own inventory. I'm sorry. It's okay, just die. Rayleigh didn't speak, but Shun Yuan broke the silence after a moment. You don't have to participate in this battle. Rayleigh nodded and agreed happily. This is the first half of the Grand Line. It is the only way to enter the New World. And this is the Judiciary Island located in the first half of the Grand Line. There is a court directly under the world government on the island. Although it is a court, it actually acts only according to the will of the world government. Anyone who is taken to Judiciary Island must have been identified as a prisoner and will definitely die. The surrounding sea area is slightly restless, as if a prey has been discovered by a beast. Marine, who was guarding the Judiciary Island, and world government officials all looked around, their brows twitching. Hey, why do you think my right eye keeps jumping around? The same goes for world government officials. Me too. I always feel like I'm going to be useless today. While the two were talking, a Marine colonel stared at the sea with suspicion on his face. He frowned and looked at the sea in the distance, not daring to relax at all. Keep an eye on that sea area. There's something wrong with the waves there. All the Navy soldiers responded one after another and dispatched several patrol teams to increase the intensity of monitoring. Should we report it to Marine headquarters? Colonel Marine hesitated. We're not sure yet. We're just relying on our feelings to act arbitrarily. I don't feel right. However, at this moment, bang! There was an explosion. Judiciary Island was shelled? Do you want to report now? The colonel looked excited, even a little secretly happy. Let's compete. If someone attacks you, why don't you defend yourself? The intelligence officer's face turned dark. Are all Colonel Marines like this? The entire Judiciary Island immediately entered a state of war. The battlefield was filled with rubble and debris, and explosions were heard one after another. Boom, 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 boom. Marco, wrapped in cyan flames, smashed the front door into pieces with one kick. Young boys, rush for Lousy. All the pirates are in high spirits and their fighting spirit is very high. Charge. Charge into Judiciary Island. Kill him without leaving any trace behind. A wave of mental thieves have landed on the island one after another, just like jackals coming ashore, biting everyone they see. In an instant, blood and flesh flew everywhere on the battlefield. The groans and screams are endless. The defenders who saw this scene began to fight back. They picked up long guns and short cannons and fought with the Whitebeard pirates. Now, the colonel stood on the watchtower. Seeing this scene, my face turned pale. Report, report. The east gate of Judiciary Island has been captured, and the leader is suspected to be former CP9 member Khalifa. Khalifa? Yes, Colonel. There is a child holding a halberd next to him. Child? The colonel looked panicked. So far, all we can do is organize manpower to ask for help from Marine headquarters. Hello? Marine headquarters? Judicial. The words haven't been finished yet. Just hearing a bang gunshot. The colonel was suddenly shot in the abdomen. Vomit. He vomited out a mouthful of blood and fell directly to the ground. Hello? Hello? The caller didn't hang up, and the operator over there looked confused. Are you sick? If you continue to harass Laozi, Laozi will send you to Marine Court. Beep, beep, beep. Imph. Don't think about asking for help. Yi Zong held 2 guns and organized his troops in an orderly manner to rush to the second gate of Judiciary Island. Boom. Bang. Kill. Kill. The sound of angry curses and slashing spread everywhere. At this moment, above the sea to the west, Crocodile stood on the bow of the ship with a wicked smile on his lips. Young men, rush into the west gate. Mr. Five leads the way. I saw him picking out the boogers from his nostrils and flicking them away. Booger bomb. A tiny booger. He was so excited that the west gate of Judiciary Island suddenly exploded. At this moment, all Baroque members rushed into Judiciary Island. All the sailors were dumbfounded. Report that the west gate has been lost. A large number of pirates have poured into Judiciary Island. Now Judiciary Island is surrounded from 3 sides and is in danger. The colonel lying on the ground seemed to be petrified. I wipe it. Come again? The colonel closed his eyes and just lay on the ground. Laozi doesn't care. Just do whatever you like. At that moment, he really wanted to die. Just then, Lieutenant General Marine, who was patrolling in the distance, also discovered the anomalies on Judiciary Island. Enemy attack. Enemy attack. Go to support. Many warships turned around, but a cold voice came from the distance. Give me some respect and stay here quietly. All the lieutenants were stunned and all looked at the source of the sound. Bang! A figure flashed in front of Lieutenant General Marine. In response, he was knocked back more than 10 meters and fell into the sea. There is no trace of sloppiness. Shin Yuan punches one. These lieutenant generals fell into the sea like dumplings. It's Shin Yuan. It's Shinigami Shin Yuan. Requesting support from the headquarters. Marine Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel's face turned green when he saw this scene. Damn it, nothing good happened the last time we met. I was scolded by that old guy from the Warring States period, and now it's you again. Before the Flying Squirrel could react, a fist covered with armed domineering energy is approaching. Nah, I haven't said anything yet. Bang! The silhouette of the Flying Squirrel flew out. Like a rocket that has been ignited, it turns into a meteor and flies high into the sky. Where is Hajime? All the lieutenant generals were knocked unconscious. The sailors were also stunned by its conquerors. Shun Yuan rubbed his hands excitedly, with a look of relief on his face. You can rest assured now. But after defeating so many people, why doesn't the system make any move? After thinking about it carefully, yes, it's already level 80, so it's obviously unrealistic to kill minions to level up. After solving the external hidden danger, Shen Yuan jumped into the air and headed straight for the main island of Judiciary Island. Whoosh! Shen Yuan's figure formed an arc and slowly disappeared above the sea. The marine soldier just watched a figure flying over his head, with a look of astonishment on his face. Report, Judiciary Island has been lost at high altitude. Colonel Nima's face turned dark. Damn it, I pretended to be dead and still reported it to Laozi? But what does it mean to lose ground at high altitude? I couldn't help but open my eyes in confusion and look into the distance. I'll wipe it. The colonel really almost couldn't breathe this time, and he vomited a mouthful of blood again on the spot. This time, Shen Yuan stepped on the moonwalk and hung high in the sky, overlooking the people below him. The fighting continues, and the 2 sides are still fighting fiercely. He nodded and seemed very satisfied. Raising his head slightly, his body suddenly accelerated and flew towards the Judiciary Tower on Judiciary Island. There. But I have a great baby. Enel here can be said to be Daihatsu Kamui. Groups of spies dressed in black, armed with weapons, faced Enel, but their foreheads were covered in cold sweat. Yahaha, yahaha, let me test your strength. Enel wields the Fong Tian painted halberd. Fong Tian's painted halberd made of gold was thrown away like a tiger. The halberd was swung out, cutting a frightening wound straight into the opponent's chest. Yahaha, you all go to hell for me. Fong Tian's painted halberd suddenly covered his armed domineering aura. revealing a chilling aura. Chang. A flying Lanjiao collided directly with Fang Tian's painted halberd, making a sound of gold and iron clashing. Enel raised his eyebrows and became interested. Have you finally found someone I can move around with? Lanjiao. Without any explanation, another slash shot out. Enel dodged sideways, narrowly dodging the attacks. Fang Tian's painted halberd whipped out in his hand. Call. The strong wind was so powerful that it staggered the intelligence officer on the opposite side. He hurriedly adjusted his body shape. He pulled off his black cloak, revealing a black suit. He tugged on his tie and was about to speak. Bang! Marco came out of nowhere and knocked him away with a kick. The commander was kicked away. The East Gate was lost, and victory was official. You guy, don't interrupt other people's battles. Marco smiled sarcastically and left in the direction of the East Gate in embarrassment. Enel was extremely angry. Holding back his breath, he rushed directly into the inner door. In the Justice Tower at this moment, Spandam stood in the room at the top of the tower, staring at the disputed judicial island for a long time. Reporting to the commander, the main entrance has been breached. Gather all troops to the Justice Tower and prepare for a desperate fight. Saying so, but Spandam's mind was already active. Just quietly retreat to the bottom of the Justice Tower, where there is a small boat that has been prepared. When the time comes, won't Laozi be able to escape directly? Can we still put the blame on Marine? This is killing two birds with one stone. Thinking of this, Spandam showed a wicked smile. You fight first, Laozi leaves first as a courtesy. After a lot of trouble, Spandam finally reached the bottom of the Justice Tower. Just as he was about to get on the boat, a cold voice came from far away. You can't leave. Spandam stiffened. Even the long sword in his hand that had eaten the elephant fruit was broken out in cold sweat. I repeat, you are already a dead person. Should you die by yourself, or should I help you die? The cold sweat on Spandam's forehead fell to the ground. Extremely nervous. Similarly, the long sword also tensed its body, preparing to cooperate with its master to launch a life-threatening blow. Just then Spandam moved. A gorgeous turn and jump high. The long sword was held in his hand. Come straight to Shun Yuan. Uncle, please spare me. Spandam knelt on the ground with a pop. Mengda presented the sword in one hand and handed the long sword to Shun Yuan like a treasure. Shun Yuan took the sword with a smile and began to look at it. Did I let you go? Spandam, who was about to escape, froze. This moment seems to reappear. He froze in place, too frightened by the threat to move. Shun Yuan threw down his sword. Bend your knees slightly, and then compress your strength to the extreme. Then his figure instantly jumped into the sky. Flip and get into a boxing stance. This punch was carried by the strong wind and crashed down with unparalleled power. Waves of sonic booms came. Spandam couldn't help but look up. When I saw this, I was shocked. My legs are shaking and I can't move. What kind of attack is this? This is the last question in Spandam's mind. Without waiting for his reaction, a devastating blow suddenly arrived. Justice! The iron fist landed on Spandam's head like a rapidly falling missile. Boom! Its head was instantly smashed by Shun Yuan, and its entire body was compressed into a two-dimensional creature. When Shun Yuan stood up again, Spandam had been smashed into a portrait. Shun Yuan clenched his fist and said casually, well, the force is a bit weak, but it's enough. Picking up the long sword on the ground, he slowly walked into the Justice Tower and began to search for the treasures in this tower. Besides, the inner door of Judiciary Island has been opened by many pirates at this moment. Everyone rushed into Judiciary Island and snatched his daughter from Laozi. Marco shouted, and behind him, Yizong and Xiaozi also entered the inner door and began to search for treasures. Marine Headquarters. Malin Vando. Blue BBBB Lu. BBBBBB Lu. The phone on Zeng was desk rang, and he frowned slightly. Hello? No. Sengoku Fleet Admiral. Before he finished speaking, the phone was hung up. There were two blue veins on Zhangguo's forehead. and he was also filled with doubts in his heart. Bulu, Bu, 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 Bu. Another phone call. Hello? The Warring States period picks up again. This time there was a noise from the opposite side, and there were shouts of people from both sides fighting. Hello? Warring States asked tentatively. No, 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 it's not good. Warring States Fleet Admiral, Seema, F.A. Before the person could finish speaking, the phone bug was hung up again. Warring States frowned. Seema? Judicial? Something happened on Judiciary Island? Judiciary Island is a symbol of world government authority. If something happens, he, the Fleet Admiral, has an unshirkable responsibility. With this in mind, I hurriedly called the Lieutenant General stationed on Judiciary Island. Brr boo boo. Boo boo boo. The phone calls of several warships merged into a symphony, but at this time, there was no one on board the warship, and they were all put into the sea. Seeing this scene, Garp, who was sitting next to Sengoku, couldn't help but wonder, what's going on? There was a report from the direction of Judiciary Island just now, but they hung up before finishing the sentence. Garp was stunned and frowned. Let me go. Garp stood up. A white Marine uniform shrinks violently, always demonstrating the power of this Marine hero. Then you go and have a look. You don't have to come back. I'll give you a day off. Garp was delighted. He rushed out of the office and started organizing people to set off. Warring States looked gloomy. The two sentences just mentioned kept popping up in my mind, and I fell into deep thought. Bulu, Bu, 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 Bu. The phone rang again, and Sangwa answered the phone with a slumped face. An urgent voice came from the other side of the phone. Warring States Fleet Admiral, I am Flying Squirrel. Judiciary Island was attacked by Shen Yuan, and there are suspected to be other pirate groups in my party. There seemed to be 2 more wrinkles on Zhenghua's face, and he looked shocked. It was Shen Yuan who attacked Judiciary Island. Did that kid attack Marine after all? Thinking like this, he still said in a deep voice, Garp has passed, don't worry. After saying that, Warring States hung up the phone. The Flying Squirrel listened to the blind tone of the other party's phone and froze in place. The Judiciary Island is gone soon. Why don't we worry? But after all, Lieutenant General Garp is on his way, so just delay it a little longer. No, something's wrong. The more Warring States thought about it, the more something was wrong. Attacking Judiciary Island is a provocation. A naked provocation. Provoke world government? Warring States again took out Shen Yuan's information. I saw the information printed with Shen Yuan's information, and the red circle was highlighted on the relatives column. Garp and this Belmar are all Marines. No matter whether he goes to sea or attacks Judiciary Island, it can't change the fact that Shen Yuan has a Marine grandfather. Warring States took a deep breath, silently putting the information back into the drawer. Holding his head with his hands clasped together, he began to ponder the hidden meaning of Shen Yuan's action. Attack Judiciary Island and then declare war on world government? The Warring States period burst into laughter. This crazy idea is like Pandora's box. Once opened, it cannot be taken back. Just thinking about it, Warring States already made a judgment in his heart. In the end, he shook his head and stopped dwelling on the matter. He picked up the phone and called Garp. Hello? What's wrong? Garp, the one who invaded Judiciary Island is Shen Yuan. Shen Yuan? Garp was stunned for a moment, but then he smiled in relief. Okay, I get it. After hanging up the phone, Garp ordered the ship to slow down and slowly sailed to Judiciary Island. Lieutenant General Garp, didn't you say that Judiciary Island is an emergency? Bogart asked doubtfully. It's okay, don't worry. Bogart's whole body seemed to have been pressed on the pause button, and he stayed in place without speaking for a long time. The intruder is Shen Yuan. Garp added unhurriedly and ate the donut in his hand. Bogart was pressed the start button again, and then he reacted. Boy, Shen Yuan attacked Judiciary Island? What does this mean? Garp ate the donut slowly and began to reminisce. He told me his dream before he went to sea. He wanted to travel around the world. What do you mean by this? Bogart still didn't understand. I mean, His ambition is far from being buried in this small sea. What do you mean by this? Bogart remained puzzled. That's my grandson, you know it. Garp's face turned dark, and he turned his head and stopped looking at Bogart. The ship sailed slowly on the sea, and the sea breeze blew in. Lieutenant General Garp, your phone number. Garp's eyes lit up. Bogart reached for a phone bug and handed it to Garp. He reached out and took the phone, but the voice on the phone was very different from what he expected to hear. Lieutenant General Garp, I am Flying Squirrel. How long does it take for you to reach Judiciary Island? Now, Judiciary Island. Right away, right away. Garp hung up the phone impatiently. Do. The Flying Squirrel listened to the blind tone in the phone bug and fell into silence. Silence is the island of justice tonight. Sudden, a figure carrying a big bag appeared suddenly and disappeared from the sight of the Flying Squirrel. He waved his sleeves and took away most of the treasure. The Flying Squirrel saw this scene. I was stupid at the time. The long knife in his hand also fell to the ground with a clang. Is this Kaito Kid?